Welcome to Conversations with Big Rich. This is an interview-style podcast. These interviewed are all involved in the off-road industry. Being involved, like all of my guests are, is a lifestyle, not just a job. I talk to past, present, and future legends, as well as business owners, employees, media, and land use warriors. Men and women who have found their way into this exciting and addictive lifestyle we call off-road. We discuss their personal history, struggles, successes, and reboots. We dive into what drives them to stay active in off-road. We all hope to shed some light on how to find a path into this world that we live and love and call off-road.
Whether you're crawling the Red Rocks of Moab or hauling your toys to the trail, Maxxis has the tires you can trust for performance and durability. 4 wheels or 2. Maxxis tires are the choice of champions because they know that whether for work or play, for fun or competition, Maxxis tires deliver. Choose Maxxis. Tread victoriously.
Have you seen 4Low magazine yet? 4Low magazine is a high-quality, well-written, four-wheel drive focused magazine for the enthusiast market. If you still love the idea of a printed magazine, something to save and read at any time, 4Low is the magazine for you. 4Low cannot be found in stores, but you can have it delivered to your home or place of business. Visit 4lowmagazine.com to order your subscription today. My guest this week is Nick Cimmarusti. From Georgetown, California, Nick is the lead of the mechanics crew on the Rebel Rally. He's also a trail guide and trainer with Barlow Adventures. Having grown up in Georgetown on the Divide in California and living close to the Rubicon Trail for most of his life, he's also an avid rock crawler. Hello, Nick Cimmarusti. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Good to hear from you.
Yeah, it's really good to have you on the podcast. It'll be interesting to find out more about you. I think I know a lot about you, but it's all been within the last 9 years.
Yeah.
You know, I know we met prior to that, but we didn't really interact at that time. So let's jump into this and see where it goes.
Sounds good.
All right. First question. Where were you born and raised?
So I was born in Glendora, California, which is Southern California, LA County, and lived down in Southern California, mainly Redlands area, till I was 6. And then we moved to Georgetown, California, and where I've been pretty much the rest of my 39 years.
So you went from Redlands to Georgetown. How did that come about? We'll get into your you probably don't have a lot of memory from 6 or before, but what's the
a little bit.
How did that happen?
Yeah, so my parents owned a business. My dad's a flight instructor and an aircraft mechanic. And my parents had moved out of Southern California prior to me being born, prior to my sister being born. They lived in Bishop, California for a while, and then moved back to Southern California. And we're looking to get out of Southern California again. And we used to camp out of our airplane. And so we were kind of camping out of our airplane, and they were low key kind of looking for a place to move. And we had looked at like Williams, Arizona. We spent a bunch of time up in Idaho. And on our way back from Idaho, we stopped in Georgetown to get some fuel. And my parents fell in love with the airport in Georgetown and decided that's where we were going to move. And so my dad moved up about a year before the rest of us and secured a hangar on the airport and built out a business there and rented a house. And then the rest of us followed a little less than a year later. And they ran a business there at the airport for 22 years, I guess. And yeah, that's kind of how it transpired.
Okay. Interesting. Idaho back to Redlands, but go through Georgetown. That's kind of a roundabout hopping way. Yeah.
Yeah, kind of airport hopping, looking for cool little spots. You know, they'd look at the sectionals and try to pick out some rural mountain airports. They knew they wanted to be in pine trees, and they just kind of picked out a bunch of airports that they hadn't been to, and Georgetown happened to be one of them. And there was an opportunity with a recent build on a hangar that was available for rent, and they liked the community, and so that's just kind of how it happened.
Nice. That's awesome. And you said you do remember a little bit prior to 6 years old?
Yeah, a little bit. Like we had at Redlands, they had a business on the airport that was a flight school and a aircraft maintenance facility, and they also had like the aerodrome, which was like a snack shop, pilot lounge thing. And one of my early memories is everybody on the airport, not everybody, but several people on the airport down there had golf carts. And I was, like 3 or 4 years old, and my mom used to tell people, "Hey, make sure you take the keys out of the golf cart if you're going to let him play on the golf cart, or else he'll steal it." And they're like, "Oh, he's fine." And several occasions, I'd steal the golf cart and go driving across the airport and beeline towards airplanes and people running after me, screaming to stop. So
That's awesome.
yeah,
So then you get your school years really then are up in Georgetown.
yeah,
And Georgetown, for those that don't know that are listening to this, is pretty rural. It's what we call the Divide, and it's between two rivers. It's a mountain range between two rivers, or two parts of a river, the American River, the Central and the South Forks, and or the Middle Fork and the South Fork, I guess you call it. And it's kind of like one of the avenues up to the Rubicon. So
yeah.
you move up there when you're 6 years old. Your parents move you up there. Obviously, you didn't move yourself.
Yeah.
And what was it like? How many kids were there, and what was it like going?
Yeah. So my mom and dad have two kids, me and my sister together. My dad had a son from previous marriage, and he's passed on, and didn't live with us. So me and my sister, and basically we grew up on the airport at Georgetown. My parents' business was open 7 days a week, 7 o'clock to 7 p.m. And so we had a house, but most of the time we were living at the airport. And like we'd go home to sleep, but most of the days were spent there. And we had a cool back room at the airport that had a couch and a TV and a kitchen and everything. And so we had a pretty good setup to be there. But basically, as a kid, I grew up on an airport that I had free reign of, that had a campground and backed up to, maybe 100,000 acres of Forest Service land with trails that went down into Canyon Creek. And so my motorcycle got worn out in Canyon Creek. And then, as I got older and got cars, they got worn out in Canyon Creek and all that. So it was a really cool place to grow up with a lot of freedom. And in that time frame, people didn't worry as much, so we could walk to town or ride our bikes to town. And we just had a lot of freedom, which was really great.
Right. And the I've not been to the Georgetown airport. Is it up like towards Growlersburg or?
Yeah. So if you go past like the shopping center there, and like you're going towards Growlersburg, instead of the left on Reservoir, you go right on Spanish Dry Diggins, and it's another mile or so out there. And
Okay.
It's kind of on a ridge line. It's kind of an intimidating airport to land at. The north end of the airport hangs over the canyon that goes down into Canyon Creek, and so a lot of people say it's like landing on an aircraft carrier, and it's kind of on a ridge line. So it's kind of a unique airport to land at. And my parents used to give out a certificate for the first time you'd land there, and old guy Bob O'Hara, that used to be a artist, kind of had this cool animated certificate that you would get when you flew in that said USS Georgetown. And my dad's got a very swoopy, intricate signature, so it was very official when you landed there for the first time.
That's awesome. Cool. So then, did you end up learning to fly yourself?
I think I was immersed in it so much it was just mundane to me, and I have an interest in it now. My dad's still a flight instructor. He still has a few planes, and so we keep talking about me getting my pilot's license. But in my younger years, it wasn't all that interesting to me. Cars and motorcycles and things like that, caught my interest a lot more because they just were things that weren't as commonplace for me. Um, I I would literally walk around the airport as a kid, and people would be pulling their plane out to go for a ride and be like, "Hey, can I go with you?" And so, I mean, I probably have as many hours in an airplane as like a commercial pilot, not flying but riding. Um, but it just never really like sunk the hook into me. And by my high school years, cars were just so much more interesting for me.
Right, right. So when you were going through school, um, what were some of the courses that interested you? Um, did you know what you wanted to do as you were going through
No,
school?
I still don't.
You still
um,
don't.
yeah, yeah. So I think like my middle school years, I had an interest in computers, and I was leaning towards learning networking and programming, and never really got deep into that. But that's kind of what I was leaning towards because my friends were leaning towards that, and then I got into high school and got into auto shop, and then it was all over from there. It was all automotive from there. And my first car was AMC Eagle,
Oh,
if you
nice.
remember those,
Oh,
like
yeah.
the original crossover, right?
Yeah.
And it didn't last very long. We got it for like $75, and poured a few quarts of transmission fluid in it and drove it home and fixed it up, and I was driving it to go snowboarding, and the heater core popped, and I didn't know enough to stop and pull over, and so the it overheated, and I put a hole in the piston, and I never really fixed it after that. I actually just recently got it back, and it's sitting in my yard.
Oh, yeah. Nice.
Yeah. So that one was kind of short lived. And then I got a Bronco 2 that was lifted, and that was my car throughout high school. And and looking back now, I was like, wow, that really wasn't as cool as I thought it was.
So in high school, and that time period, you were mostly just into cars. Did you do any sports or any other activities?
No, never really got into sports. Like as a kid, I did little league and soccer and things like that, but never played any sports in high school. It was pretty much all, like automotive all the time. So
Right. And as your parents were up there in Georgetown and you're growing up, what kind of things did you guys do besides hang out at the airport? I mean, vacation wise or travel, anything like that?
yeah, we used to. So family, like we've got a decent sized family, and family's always been important. So we used to travel to Southern California a couple times a year, and that was most of our family vacations. Were just visiting family in Southern California. On my mom's side, my great grandparents had homesteaded a piece of property in Valyermo, which is out um, on the north side of the San Gabriel Mountains, kind of Palmdale, Lancaster, Lake Los Angeles area. It's like high desert, really beautiful spot. So we'd go out there, and then we'd go visit my dad's side of the family in Apple Valley and spend a lot of time there. And then, like my middle school years, I think I was in seventh or eighth grade. My dad bought a YJ, and so our big thing, especially in the winter months, was every time it snowed, we were trying to make fresh tracks. So, like I missed a few school days here and there because we were trying to make tracks in the snow up to Uncle Tom's and stuff.
Right. Back then, before it was paved?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Okay.
Like I think they paved it. I was 17 or 18 when it got paved.
Okay. That was a sad day for me when they
Yeah.
or a sad year
Yeah.
for me when they paved it.
Yeah. I remember when it was still like they paved the upper section first, right? They paved from Tom's to Ice House first, and from 11 Pines to Stumpy was still like single lane pavement that was all rutted out from the logging trucks. And my dad and I had taken the tent trailer that we had up to like Ice House or Loon, one of those, and we were jetting back down in my mom's Explorer, and we hit that section of like single lane pavement, and it was like the worst whoop section in Johnson Valley, and we had to got 2 or 3 feet of air in the Explorer, and it like walked its way sideways. We thought we were rolling it and everything.
And how you had the Bronco 2 through the rest of high school?
Yeah, pretty much. It lasted. I had it through high school, but I think I put 3 or 4 sets of heads on it. And at one point I was thinking I was going to make it like a full size Bronco and make the back come off. So I broke the windows out and then cut the top off of it, and, never added any structure to it. So like the floorboard started cracking apart, and I drove that thing until it wouldn't drive anymore. Like it had bad cam bearings, so it sounded like a diesel.
And what did you replace the Bronco with?
Oh, so I got expelled my junior year for fighting, and then I started going to high school I started going to auto shop in Auburn at Placer High School, and that high school teacher sold me a Honda Civic that had been wrecked. And so I drove that for a while, and I had a Isuzu Space Cab truck, and then I just kept replacing and replacing. I've owned probably, conservatively a few hundred cars by now. I just would like run something until it didn't run anymore, and then replace it.
So let's expand on this expelled from your junior year in high school fighting. I never would have guessed that you had gotten into fights. Or was it just one?
Just one, pretty much, and it was stupid. And I picked up a 2x4 and came back and said, hey, you're a big guy, I'm a small guy, and so this stick makes it even. And he said, oh, you're not going to hit me with that. And then I hit him with it to prove him wrong, and it turned into a big thing. And yeah, so
assault with a semi-deadly weapon.
Yeah, it was a assault with a deadly weapon, battery with intent to do great bodily injury, and inciting a riot. So
inciting a riot. What happened beyond the two of you?
The cops had to get everybody to go back to class. So not my finest moment. And it's probably one of the better, like, in one respect, it was a good thing that happened to me, because in getting expelled, I went on independent study, and I was able to finish. Like my high school career was not like academically great until I went on independent study, and I was able to just knock out credits and finished with a much higher GPA, and it turned into a good thing for me. I was able to start working quite a bit, and I think kind of started me off with a really good work ethic that a lot of my friends didn't get that finished high school.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Let's talk about work then. What was the first job you had?
Well, first job I had was working for my parents at the airport. Working on airplanes, washing parts, stuff like that. Menial things that they probably could have had done elsewhere or by somebody else for much more efficiently, but they were trying to help me out. And then I've worked at a dry cleaner. I worked at a metal finishing place doing anodization. I worked, I don't know, all over the place. And then my parents closed the business closed in right after September 11th, like the year after September 11th happened. So 2002. And they wound up kind of falling into doing satellite internet and satellite TV installs. So I went to work for them doing that for a while too. And that was a really successful business for them, and they're still doing some of that today. But I did that for a while until I kind of worked at different shops and stuff like that, doing automotive stuff, doing a lot of automotive work on the side. And then I opened, my dad helped me open Black Sheep Off-Road. And so that was in 2009, in the middle of the recession. I was like, oh, I'm going to open an off-road shop. Figured out that nobody had money to spend on an off-road shop. So I started doing general automotive repair also, and that worked out pretty good. And had the off-road / automotive repair shop still have it, but it was my primary thing and in full swing until 2020, right in COVID.
So that's where I think I first met you, was when you had your shop.
Yeah.
It was next door to Rogi's. Is that correct?
Yeah. That building's collapsed now, or gone now. It collapsed. But,
oh, really? Wow.
Yeah. During the snow a few years ago, there was too much snow weight on top of it, and both those big commercial buildings collapsed. But yeah, I moved in there in 2009. I think Rogi moved in a year later, 2 years later, something like that. And I moved out in 2012, I think, and moved into the shop that is behind the auto parts store.
Okay. And because that same business area was, Dan Trout had his shop there after in Rogi's spot after that. And then I think it was Rogi's spot. And then there was also, that's where the Pirate headquarters were, Pirate 4x4.
Yeah.
Yeah. And was Pirate going on at that time?
Yeah. I think I put the lift on Camo's excursion that we had, and I did a little bit of work here and there for them.
Okay. Did you ever go to any of their parties?
No, they were kind of right at the tail end of what they were doing there. I think we were only in the same complex for maybe a year and a half, something like that.
Okay. So then you go through all these miscellaneous jobs, not any real careers, and then you jump into a shop, and you jumped in during, the recession. How did that all go? Was your clientele based there? It was mostly in Georgetown?
Yeah, not all of it. I had one really good client. I built a flat fender Jeep for him that was pretty much all custom. It's a throttle down customs frame and Aqualoo body and Curry axles, and we wound up putting a 2-liter EcoBoost motor in it out of a Ford Fusion and stuff. And that guy lived in Long Beach, and now he lives in Texas. We're building another truck for him. But so that kind of worked out to where I got some work from out of the area. But it was kind of few and far between. So I started having to do general automotive repair locally, because one thing that the recession did do was, instead of going out and being able to buy a new car, people really started focusing on keeping up their cars. So there was no shortage in general automotive repair to keep the commuters rolling,
Right. Yep. I get it. And you spend, when did the Rubicon become important to you?
Well, probably middle school, so 12 years old, something like that. My dad bought his YJ, and when I was really young, my dad had a early Bronco. I think it was like a 70, 71 Bronco, something like that. and I remember it a little bit. But the YJ was like the first, you know, Jeep that we had, and we spent some time up on the Rubicon, and we spent a lot of time in the snow, but also exploring the entire Crystal Basin area, and around Highway 50, Kybers, like south of 50 out in that area. And so, really got hooked on the Rubicon and stuff really in high school. Tried to take my Bronco 2 up there several times. They were kind of plagued with, they had the front diff was aluminum. And so you could just basically rip the pinion out of the front diff really easily. And so I ripped the front diff in that thing apart a few times. And then I'm trying to remember, I think it was right after I graduated, I got a Suzuki Samurai, and that's when I started really getting up on the Rubicon a lot. And I kind of bounced around between different rigs. I had a couple of different Samurais, and for a couple of years I was wheeling a 73 F100 that was all cut apart, and had a 390 and an NP 435, so I had a really good granulo, the Detroit's front and rear, and had a pretty nice 4Runner that I was really proud of this 4Runner, and built it out really well. Had solid axle, swapped it, had 529s and dual transfer cases with a 4-3 gear set in one of them, and it was like just a really cherry 4Runner. And the first time I took it out, I rolled it over on Devil's Post pile.
Oh no.
Yeah.
That's I had a square box Chevy. It was a 72. That was the guy that I got it from. Was he had it painted really nice, was working on the engine, had a small block 400 in it, and I got that thing from him, and I was impatient and didn't replace the tires before driving it. I mean, I was waiting for tires to show up, and I just got impatient and took it on the interstate in Utah between St. George and Cedar City, and had a front tire blowout and rolled it at like 75 miles an hour. And all I did was destroy the body, didn't twist the frame or anything, so I swapped bodies on it. But I was really sad because the thing was, the body was just really, really nice, and fiberglass hood with a ram air type intake on it, hood louver type thing. And then I ended up with a body on it from a 76 that was primered.
Yeah, that's kind of how my life's been. As soon as I make something really nice, it gets destroyed. So I'm like, always leave it at that 90% mark.
Luckily, I haven't wrecked my Raptor yet. I probably should have, but I haven't. So fingers crossed. Knock on wood.
Your square body tire story reminds me, like when I was in high school, one of my best friends was Neil Bratton, and he was like the R&D guy at Rough Stuff for a long time. He's a hell of a fabricator and hell of a welder. And he used to live above Georgetown, and he had a square body Chevy. I think it was like a 76, and it had a small block 400 in it, and it had a SM 465. And we found some tires his dad had, so we decided we were going to bolt those on and go do burnouts until they popped. And so we would go up by Chiquita, and we're just dumping the clutch and burning the tires until they popped, and then we had flat tires and we couldn't figure out how to get it back to the house, so we had to drive back on the rims.
One other time when I was in high school, a friend of mine, Craig, we took his dad's, I think it was a 63 Impala, may have been a 64 two-door, and we were doing donuts in the parking lot of the high school at night and blew the rear end up.
Yeah.
I mean, it just exploded. There was grease everywhere, and parts and all that. So we pushed it. We grabbed the parts and we pushed it out of the parking lot and down the road, and then called his dad. Took it down to by a stop sign, threw all the parts on the ground, and then told him, "Yeah, we don't know what happened. We just went to pull away, and it just rear end let loose." He didn't believe us, but
I've tried that line before. I tried that line a lot of times. Yeah. My dad asking why my mom's tires on her Ford Aerostar minivan are bald in the back. I don't know. Well, why is all this rubber stuck in the wheel well? I don't know.
Slick roads.
Yeah.
So then you moved into the shop in town, and you continue. Well, you still have that shop, correct?
Yeah, so my dad wound up with that building in a business deal, and so it made sense for me to move in downstairs. And it was pretty rough down there, so we did a bunch of work, and it served as a really nice shop for us. It's a cool location. It's right off the main street, so you're close to everything that's going on, but it's on the back side of the building, so not everybody's walking in all the time. And yeah, I still have it. I've been teaching classes out of it here and there, and I still do a couple projects here and there, and tinker on my own stuff there. But one of these days I'll build a shop at my house and probably move out of there. But until then, it's still a pretty nice shop to have.
So my next question is, how did you get hooked up with? What came first, Jeepers Jamboree or Nina Barlow?
Well, I've been around Jeepers for a long time, and know all the Jeepers people. I went to high school with Lacey, or all through school with Lacey. She's a couple years older than me, but yeah, I think as far as like attending Jeepers and working for Jeepers, that was after Nina. So I started working with Harold Peachman, who used to do guided trips on the Rubicon. He started, I think, in 1987. He was a Camel Trophy guy, competed on Camel Trophy, and met Mark Smith. And Mark invited him out to the Rubicon, said, "Hey, you got to come check out the Rubicon." And Harold said, "Well, all I have is a G-Wagon, and I heard I have to have a Jeep." And Mark said, "That's bullshit. You should bring your G-Wagon." So he came to the Rubicon and decided that was a good spot, and built a business guiding and kind of touring on the Rubicon in the summertime, and then spending his winters in Mexico. He's a German guy, so German citizen, so he had to spend a little bit of time out of the country. So he split it between the Rubicon and La Paz, and he would do some guided trips out down in Mexico in the wintertime. And so I started when I opened the shop, I started doing his maintenance in the summertime, or maybe not maintenance, but some of his emergency repairs between trips. He was running some TJs and old FJ40s, and it seemed like things broke pretty frequently on those. And I maintained things for him for a while, did a bunch of emergency repairs on the trail for him, tried to help out as much as I could. And so in 2013, he was at home in Mexico, coming off of his roof. He had like a little narrow staircase coming down from the roof, and fell off the staircase and wound up breaking his ankles. And so Nina Barlow bought his business from him, and I guess I came with the sale of the business and started working for her. So I think it was 2013 we did. I didn't start guiding for her, but I started doing some, her maintenance and stuff. Maybe that was 2012. I don't remember. I started doing her maintenance for the Jeeps when she was there in the summertime, She ran the TJs that she bought from him for the first year, and then brought JKs in the next year, and still did all the work while they were there in the summertime. And then we did a couple of like bigger events, like we did the Top Gear, did an episode on the Rubicon, and I went along for support on that, and that kind of opened up more work with Nina, and I started helping guide trips, and then we started doing stuff where I started teaching, basic off-road driving and recovery skills, things like that with her. And she really, kind of encouraged me to follow that pathway. And I was not a very good public speaker and was not good at delivering anything to anybody. And, she, challenged me into making that better. And that's kind of, snowballed into a lot of work with Nina, and she's, her and I are really good friends, and she's takes very good care of me, and I do a lot of work with her now.
And part of that encouragement that she was giving was getting your trainer's license?
Yeah, so I think it was 2016. She said, "Hey, you need to do this," and it was the testing for certification process with the International Four-Wheel Drive Trainers Association, and that was a fun week-long testing process out in Moab. It's a very rigorous, testing process where they run you through all these different scenarios and try to push you to your limits. And a good majority of the folks involved are military of some level. Most, a lot of them are, lots of military experience, and just incredible amount of knowledge among all of them. And it's a very tough process, and only I think about 20% pass rate. And I think there was 11 people in my testing class, and 2 or 3 of us passed. And so that was, I really enjoyed it. I felt like I was, right at home, suffering and dealing with crappy cars and all these things. And my biggest problem was the presenting part and public speaking part. And it still gives me jitters having to do that. But now it's more of a, like I want to feel that, I guess, now.
Oh, the adrenaline rush?
Yeah, yeah.
Cool.
So, like at Rebel Rally every year, I have to get up and talk in front of everybody during the rally school, and my hands are always shaking and everything. But once I get up there and talk, I'm fine. But it's the 10 minutes leading up to where I'm terrified.
I didn't realize that. I'm going to have to give you a hard time now.
Yeah.
You do a good job.
Thanks.
So let's talk about that. You're working for Nina. You've got your own shop. You're guiding. You've got your trainer's license, and an opportunity comes up. How did that opportunity come up to work with the Rebel?
Yeah, so a lot of things happened in 2016. The testing for certification happened in 2016. I started the fire academy in 2016, and then Emily Miller called me in 2016 and said, "Hey, Nita Barlow recommended you. I'm looking for somebody to come help me with this rally." And she's explaining what it is, and that we're gonna, need to provide mechanical support for this rally. And I was, trying to wrap my head around how that looks, and like, I don't know that I'm equipped for this. So I was like, I have a Jeep and a Jeep trailer. Like, I could throw some tools in and chase everybody around, but I don't know how effective that would be. She's like, "What about a trailer?" And I was like, "Well, I could rent a U-Haul, I guess." And so that's what we did. We rented a U-Haul, and we loaded all the things we could think we might possibly need into the back of that, and went and chased the Rebel Rally around.
And that first year, were you at the staff meeting on the
I
lake
missed
side? Okay, you weren't
I
there.
missed the staff meeting. I got there late. Um, the I think I'm trying to remember why we were late. We were late, and so I missed the staff meeting, and um, but I did get there for tech inspection, and I think that was I'm trying to remember.
That was the year of the
Was that the
fire.
year it snowed? Yeah, yeah. So fire, the snow, all that. I think we had to. I'm trying to remember if we had to build a hitch for the U-Haul that year or the year after. Anyways, it's always been crazy. Leading up to it, it's always been at least a month-long process leading up to it to get ready. And that year, I wrote the all the mechanical rules and mechanical guidelines for an event I didn't really understand. But Emily and I spent a lot of time on the phone trying to figure out what we needed, and Chris and I spent a lot of time on the phone figuring out, what made sense. And so we wrote the mechanical guidelines and all that, and then we showed up late.
And how many people did you have working for you that first one?
So I brought one of the guys that worked for me at the shop, and then Josh McWorthy came as a recommendation from Nina. He worked at the dealership in Cottonwood, Oxendale, that did all the service on her Jeeps, and so he was a recommendation from her. And then I think the Hohens sent a guy from Honda that worked at one of their dealerships, but he didn't come to tech. He met us at one of the later base camps. So we had three, but not all the time three.
Right, because
And
Josh ended up
yeah,
on course.
on course. Yeah.
Yeah. And what
Yeah.
was the biggest repair you had that year?
The we had a lot of repairs, but the thing that took the most time across the entire rally was working on Territrips, the rally computers, the odometers. They were just, and like nobody knew anything about them, and they're very finicky. They're not a real robust piece of equipment, and they took a there was a huge learning curve. I think we were up 3 o'clock in the morning still trying to install people's Territrips the night before rally school, and I think the Porsche, that was the year the Porsche Cayenne, we were trying to figure out some problems with the Territrip, and they turned the ignition on while I was underneath it, and we didn't have, it wasn't jacked up, but it wasn't on jack stands, and the air suspension just started to squat, and I was underneath it still, and so that was base camp one, and I did the rest of the rally with a, most likely a fractured rib.
Wow, I didn't know that.
Oh yeah.
And then
Couldn't breathe the whole rally.
at Dumont, they blew out both tires on one side of the vehicle.
Yeah.
And then
Dumont
Sugar High.
Dumont was a shit show.
Yeah.
Everybody broke everything. Sugar High bent the front axle and broke out the back window and did some other damage. And so that was the big, story repair for us, was we found a new front axle, and first I took that on the trailer. So it happened at Dumont. Put that Jeep on the trailer, went to Hesperia because my uncle knew a guy that ran a body shop that had a frame machine. So we went and bent the axle back, and they ran it for a day, and it bent again because we didn't gusset it or anything like that. And so it bent again. And so the next day I was calling around frantically trying to figure out what was going on. And I found a shop called Crawler Off-Road in Indio, and they built a Dana 30 real quick, and we swapped it in that night so that they could finish the rally.
Right.
But, yeah.
I thought that was pretty awesome for the first one.
Yeah. Yeah, we've always been pretty good about trying to get everybody across the line.
Right.
And it doesn't matter if it's the last day or anything like that. We definitely, want to give them whatever they can get.
So then the next year it expanded for you, didn't it?
A little bit for us, yeah. So, that was the year we were like, oh, we ran out of space last year. Let's get a bigger U-Haul. And so we got a 24-foot U-Haul, which was a mistake because at the time U-Haul was transitioning out of their GMC, like top kick trucks. And so we got a truck that was just a royal piece of crap, and I had to build a hitch for it because it didn't have a hitch receiver, and we were trying to tow my car trailer. And so I had to build a hitch, and then by the time we got to Dumont, I had, like we had repaired a bunch of stuff on the truck. I had to patch the radiator, and we were babying the fuel pump because it was failing, and we limped it into Yucca Valley, and we were like, hey, we need a new truck. And all they had were the smaller, like a 17-foot U-Haul. So we had to put everything from a 24-foot U-Haul into a 17-foot U-Haul. And they weren't very happy that I built a new hitch for it. And so I had to unbolt that in their driveway and put their hitch back on. Yeah, it was a rally within the rally that year.
Right. But if all of us have a rally going on, depending on, whether your teams, or if you're course crew, or if you're medical safety, if you're the mechanics, we have all scoring. We've all got our own rally that we're doing.
Yeah, I think your Jeep's been on my trailer several times during the rally.
I think it probably has more time on the trailer than any other single vehicle, except maybe the old Bronco.
Yeah, that one's been on the trailer a little bit, unfortunately.
Yeah, luckily that old Cherokee is relegated to just trail use now.
Yeah.
So then you started doing training classes for, it started off more like for the rebels, didn't it? And then it's just kind of grown from there, or what?
No, actually, the training and stuff started before the rally, and it kind of morphed into rebel training because we were doing training previously, and then the rebels, like year two, we kind of saw some training increase, or some training interest from rebels. I think year 3 and 4 were really the, people started realizing, hey, like I can get a leg up if I take some training. But most of our training that we were doing wasn't Rebel Rally related at all. And, then we just started seeing more interest. And so now we do some Rebel specific training and some Rebel endorsed training, that, we've partnered with Emily on some stuff. And so like at the end of next month in February, we've got our week-long, Glamis training that we do every year. And it's coming off the end of the Rebel U training. So they'll have the opportunity to go do 2 days of Rebel U training with Emily and Chrissy. And then they come right into our training, where it's a pretty comprehensive sand driving class, and desert driving class with a full day of classroom navigation and everything. And it's a pretty in-depth course that we've got built out.
Cool. And how many? And that's through Barlow. And how many people are involved in that on the training side?
Well, six instructors there for that training, and we'll probably have a couple of helpers, like teachers' assistants. So have me, Nina, Paul will be the lead instructors, and then Mandy, Alex, and I'm trying to remember who else. I feel bad that I know there's 6. I think Nicole Patel will be out there, and it's normally a pretty good time, and a lot of learning, and a lot of overcoming some, being uncomfortable in the sand, and figuring out what you can and can't do, and that it's okay to get stuck and how to get unstuck, and all those things.
I don't know how to get stuck.
No, I'm very good at it.
I'm going to knock on wood, but then again, I've never had to go out into the middle of the dunes.
Oh yeah,
I mean, not into the deep areas of the dunes.
I've been to every corner of those dunes in cars that shouldn't be there.
Right?
Yeah. It's funny when the Power Wagon tow truck shows up at the swing set and all the guys in the sand cars and the razors are like, what the hell is that doing here?
That's classic.
Yeah. I drove my bone stock Ford Ranger out there. And that was fun.
Oh God. So then, and when's that Rebel U and the Barlow training?
So the Barlow training is it's the last week of February, and I think the first day of March. Yeah. Let's see. Yeah, so I think we start on the 23rd and wrap it up on the 2nd.
Nice. Okay. Yeah. That should be a good time to be down in the sand dunes.
Yeah, it's normally pretty pleasant. We've done training there in August, and that's not fun.
Yeah, it's not pleasant. No.
Yeah.
Hell, some of the times that we're there for the Rebel, it's not pleasant.
Yeah. Yeah. Right. Yeah. Yeah. I learned that firsthand. 115 degrees, my brain stops working.
Yeah.
We try to do a last minute sand training now. We've got permitting for Sand Mountain up by Fallon now. So we do like September, get a last minute sand driving training in there before the rally, and that's a little nicer in September than Glamis is.
Yeah, that's what Shelly and I showed up to you guys' training.
Oh yeah,
last year.
Yeah,
yep.
Yeah. That was a good one.
It was funny because we'd seen some people post about being out at Glamis or out at Sand Mountain, and it was like, we're not doing anything. Let's drive out there.
Yeah,
it's only 2.5, 3 hour drive, whatever it is.
Yeah,
it was fun.
Yeah, it was great to see you guys too.
So
got to help out with the enduro practice.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah. So then, how did Michael? That's a good story. Why don't you talk about how Michael got involved with you guys in becoming a mechanic?
Yeah, so Michael Schaefer is he's like my right-hand man now. And I wish he lived a lot closer. He lives in Vegas, but he's probably one of my best friends that lives far away. And his wife has competed since the beginning. And
she was in the Sugar High Jeep.
Yep, she was the navigator in the Sugar High Jeep. And so the Sugar High Jeep, bent the axle the first year, and it was Michelle and Kevin Davis owned that Jeep.
Right.
And they were towing it behind their motor home in the off season, and I don't know exactly what happened. Like when you're towing a Jeep, the transportation should be in neutral and the transmission should be in park, or if it's manual in gear, right? So the transmission doesn't turn. And I think likely what happened was the transmission was in neutral, and an automatic transmission doesn't oil from the back, it oils from the front turning. And so if the engine's not running, it's not oiling. And I think the transmission overheated and it caught on fire, right? And so that fire melted the dash and all that. And so Kevin went through and built a custom dash for it out of aluminum, and it looked really cool. And he's a detailer guy, and old school hot rods and stuff like that is what he was into. And so he put autometer gauges in the dash, and his thought process was, hey, I don't need all these sensors on the motor because the gauges are, have their own sensors. So he had got rid of the coolant temp sensor, and some other things weren't connected on this Jeep. and that was just running like crap. And Andrea and Michelle had competed again, and we were in Dumont, and the thing was running super fat. Like it was pushing so much fuel through the exhaust, their eyes are watering and they can't breathe. And I'm going, what the heck is going on? So I plug into it, finally find the OBD2 port to plug into it. And, it's throwing codes for not having the coolant temp sensor and a few other things going on. And I called Kevin, and it's pretty common when I'm doing repairs on Rebel's vehicles. I enlist their significant other's help, for
Because they've had
background
their
of the
hands in
vehicle.
it.
Oh yeah, right. Yeah. So I, either background on the vehicle, or I, make them start calling around looking for parts, anything like that. And so I call Kevin, and he's like, "Oh yeah, I unhooked all that stuff. I pulled it out. We didn't think we needed it." And so it's like, "Okay, well it needs it," and so we were in Dumont, which is only a couple hour drive from Vegas, and Michael lives in Vegas, and so I called him, and it's late. It's dark. I don't know, probably 9, 10 o'clock at night, and I was like, "Hey, I need all these parts to make this thing work." And so luckily Vegas has some 24-hour parts stores. He picked it all up, and one of the things that was going on with the Jeep was it had like an aftermarket air cleaner on it, and like an oiled air filter, which generally aren't very good in the dirt, and it was passing a lot of dirt into the motor. And I was like, "Hey, we need a air filter, cone filter, and a pre-filter." He's like, "I can't find a pre-filter." I was like, "Well, bring me some pantyhose, right?" And he wasn't allowed to come to base camp because you can't have outside people come into base camp. So I had to meet him in the middle of the night, and away from base camp, a mile down the road. So the story goes that I met Michael Schaefer in the middle of the night, under the moon, to have him give me his wife's pantyhose. and, and that's how we became friends. And so the next year, I don't remember if it was year 3 or year 4 that Michael came on. I was looking for some help, and it's hard to find the right people that fit on the crew. There's a lot of people that are very skilled mechanics, but it's hard to explain what base camp is like if you're not there. But
Yes.
it's hard to find the right people that fit. And so I invited Michael to come, and there was some really strict rules about him being there if his wife is competing and all that. And I don't know how I ever started out without him, because like all I have to do is call him and be like, "Hey Mike, I need this," and then I don't have to worry about it anymore. Or like I can be working on one car over here, and this year we got split up for we had some big transitions on this rally where our crew was broken apart, and I never even had to worry about what was going on with what he was taking care of.
Right. Yeah, it's good to have that kind of and the skilled, and somebody that can think on their own, and you don't have to guide. That's one of the things about the staff on the Rebel, is that everybody, especially nowadays, are problem solvers.
Yeah.
And I don't care what part of the staffing it is. Everybody is very capable, thinks on their own, self-starters, will take care of problems when they see them. They don't even have to ask. They just do it, and it just works.
Yeah.
It just works.
Yeah. They're all Swiss Army knife people. They have a little bit of everything, and it's not like, "Hey, this is my job and this is my only job." It's any problem that comes up, any one of them could.
Yeah. The only one on the Rebel that pulls that card is me.
Yeah.
Because I'm Shelley's driver. That's it.
That's it.
So, well, let's talk about you and your family, immediate family, wife and kids.
Yeah.
So how long you been married?
Married for almost 16 years. Next month will be 16 years. We've been together for 19, and my wife Jennifer. We met here in Georgetown. She was the bagger at the grocery store, and my uncle, who wasn't really my uncle, just really close family friend, had taken me to the grocery store before I was 21 to help me buy a bunch of booze. So I had a shopping cart full of booze, and she came to bag all that, and I said, "Oh, we're definitely going to need help out to the car with this." and so a couple days later, I came back and got her phone number, and that's all she wrote. The first time, our first date was taking my dad's truck down to Canyon Creek and tearing up a bunch of mud and getting the truck all muddy, and real redneck date.
Right.
But yeah, we've been together for 19 years, and she's on the staff at the Rebel also as a safety team member. She's an EMT and firefighter.
Right. And she's out of town right now.
No, she's back now. She was in Southern California on the Palisades fire, but back now. And, we were kind of looking at the Hughes fire yesterday to see if one of us was going to go out, but they didn't call. So, and then we have 2 kids. Trenton is 15 and Allison's 13. And so they're both at they moved the middle school to the high school a couple years ago. So Allison's in 7th grade and Trenton's a sophomore, and he's working on his driver's license. He's got his permit now, and so hopefully he'll have his driver's license soon. He bought his first car all on his own. He's got a job and
nice.
Got himself a 2004 Jeep Cherokee. That's pretty cool.
2004 Cherokee? Oh, so it's one of the new.
It's a WJ.
Yeah. Okay.
So, yeah. It's got a 4.7 in it, and it's actually a car that was owned by a friend of mine, and they bought it new, and I maintained it for years at the shop, and so they hooked him up pretty good on it.
Yeah. Good. And you got onto the fire department just recently, this last year, I think, full time. Is that correct?
Yeah. So I started out as a volunteer, went through the volunteer academy in 2016, and that was in part due to leading Rubicon trips for Nina. I was like, wow, if I'm out here with all these people, I should get some more medical experience. And the Volunteer Fire Academy offered an emergency medical responder course as part of the academy. And so I did that and got hooked and been pretty involved as a volunteer since then. And last September, I got hired full time. So I worked a bunch of fill-in shifts here and there over the last several years, and have been, part-time extra help. And the opportunity came up to go full time, and I took it. And I'm, so far I'm pretty happy with it. Really like it.
Excellent. So what's on the horizon for you?
Right now is there's an 18-month probation cycle for this job. So, focusing on doing a good job there. One of the big reasons to take that job is the schedule is 2 days on and 4 days off. So we're still working on stuff in the shop on my off days and doing a lot of training. Recently, in the last 2 years, I started doing mechanical training. So I teach a entry-level mechanics class, entry-level welding class, and then a couple of steps up from those. And so I really want to expand those classes and, kind of take that out a little farther, make it a little more available to people. And, there's not a lot of opportunity to do, a little bit of mechanical training. You can go to auto shop in high school. You could go to junior college and get some adult education classes, but you're kind of committing to a whole semester there's not a lot of opportunities for bite-sized pieces. So I want to expand that. There's a lot of people that have mechanical knowledge, are pretty knowledgeable and can do a lot of things, but maybe they don't know how to do gear setups to do their ring and pinions. And so I'd like to do a ring and pinion class for a little more advanced class, stuff like that.
Excellent.
But that's the big things that are on the horizon, is more of that, more Rebel. This year over the last couple of years, we've really grown the Rebel program, and Pennzoil came on and Milwaukee came on, and really helped us grow the mechanic program. And Rivian has really supported a lot there. Toyota has really supported a lot there with sending technicians, and so that program keeps getting bigger, which means it takes more time every year. So that'll be a big time suck this year, I'm sure, which is always fun.
Well, and it's our 10-year reunion too, or anniversary, I
Yeah.
should say.
Yeah, everything's going to break big this year.
We should. I wonder how many cars have actually done every year. Is it just probably Hohen, the Land Rover?
Oh yeah, that one's definitely been every year. That one broke big this year. We had to put high pressure fuel pumps in it.
Oh wow!
In Klamath without our trailer. Yeah, I don't know. Every year. Yeah, the people stay the same, but the cars don't always.
Right. Right.
Uh,
So I think
That's
Hohen might be the
off
only
top of my
one.
head. Yeah, it'd be interesting to find out.
So
But,
the is your son interested and your kids interested in the Rubicon like you have? Are they going to follow in the footsteps?
yeah, I think so. They've been going to the Jeep Jamboree event, the second trip, the family event with Camp Rubicon, since they were little. I do the medical support for Jeepers, and so I drag them along on the family trip, and I think as they get older and drive more, they'll get more and more into the wheeling side of it. But now it's the social aspect of going up there and seeing their friends that they don't see except once a year, and being part of all the activities that the Jeepers puts out, and they, that's a big thing for them. And I just built them a Jeep. I've got a 95 YJ that I put on JK axles with 513s and 35s and all that. So they've got a Jeep to wheel around up there. I built that with the intent of letting them, suffer a little bit on leaf springs.
Yeah, that's a good way to learn, though.
Oh yeah. So, yeah. So it'll be fun for them. It's almost done. I think all I have left to do is bleed the brakes and put a water pump on it, and it should be good to go.
Awesome. Well, Nick, I want to say thank you so much for not only spending the time and talking about how you got to where you are today, but also for what you've done on the Rebel and what you've done for me personally. You've helped me out not only with the Jeep, the old black beater XJ, but you come through and always you always take care of me, and I appreciate that. So
Well,
anything I can ever
like
do
hanging
for
out
you,
with you.
all you got to do is call, dude.
Well, I appreciate that. Thanks.
And this is going to be a good year on the Rebel.
I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you have a great evening. Thank you so much for sitting and talking.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. I've been listening to your show for a while now, so it's fun to be part of it.
Excellent. And I'll let you know that it'll air this Thursday, so a week from today. So get ready for that.
Awesome.
All right. You take care and succeed at everything you do.
Thanks, Rich.
All right.
So
No
I
more.
said hi.
Okay. No more fighting with a 2x4.
Yeah. All
Oh,
right.
one last question. Do you see that
Yeah.
guy anymore?
Yeah. We still live in the same town. We're all good.
Okay.
Small town stuff.
Yeah. All right. Sounds good. You take care.
You too.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Well, that's another episode of Conversations with Big Rich. I'd like to thank you all for listening. If you could do us a favor and leave us a review on any podcast service that you happen to be listening on, or send us an email or a text message or a Facebook message, and let me know any ideas that you have, or if there's anybody that you have that you think would be a great guest, please forward the contact information to me so that we can try to get them on. And always remember, live life to the fullest. Enjoying life is a must. Follow your dreams and live life with all the gusto you can. Thank you.